I now currently pay for ChatGPT.
Because of the voice.
Because of the voice, I use it a lot.
The way I'm seeing people use it, which has floored me, is they're using it as a 24/7 psychologist.
And that's insane.
If you're up in the middle of the night and you have no one to talk to and you can't call your therapist, ChatGPT is there for you.
What are your thoughts on graduate school?
2 of our top portfolio companies over the last 12 years did not have college degrees. They dropped out of college.
Person who was going to fully just help change a company will never actually get hired because AI will be the one that is filtering out their application.
Welcome to Open Risk. I'm Mike Jones.
And I'm Arianna Finger.
I'm glad we're back. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Today, though, we are talking about asking for what you want.
Okay.
AI and astrology, then the upcoming layoffs.
Sure.
And then is college worth it? Is a master's worth it?
Part of the job market. Yes, totally agree.
Drone behavior, whole shebang.
So you want to start with the AI stuff or do you want to start
Sure.
with the spiritual stuff?
Oh, that's up to you.
Oh, I always start with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so has AI wound its way into your life?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you use it?
When ChatGPT first came out with a paid version, I think I paid for it for maybe a month or two. And then I was like, I never use this. This is actually one of those subscriptions that I really don't need.
Okay.
Then fast forward, let's call it 6-7 months, something like that. I was at a friend's house and he pulls out ChatGPT because we were talking about something super random.
Okay.
It was like, how many kids did Peyton Manning have or something? It was something bizarre.
Got it.
And he was like, let's ask ChatGPT. Okay. Sounds great. This is nothing new. People have said this to me when I have also been around them before.
Yeah.
The new thing, though, is that button that you can press where you literally can have a conversation.
Everything you say from now on is just going to be dripping in sarcasm. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds just amazing.
Yes.
I now currently pay for ChatGPT.
Because of the voice.
Because of the voice. And let me tell you, I use it a lot.
Okay.
There are some days where I don't. There are some days where I use it upwards of 5-6 times.
Okay.
I used it upwards of 5-6 times yesterday.
Is this for reference, fact checking?
I like it because I'm I can't say it or else the phones will malfunction.
Fine.
I'm an SIRI user.
Got it.
And what I like about it is that I can just be like, hey, SIRI, what is the weather today? Or how many kids does Peyton Manning have?
Okay.
Or something like that. Except for the issue with that is it's just going to give you Google links.
Right.
It's not going to synthesize the information.
Right.
What I like and why I pay now for ChatGPT is because it will literally synthesize the information for you.
Yeah.
It's a time saver.
That's all reference. That's all find this for me.
Yeah.
How much is this? Whatever. But how are you using it personally? Are you using it hey, I got this communication. How should I respond? I'm feeling this way. Are you doing it for anything around psychology?
No.
No?
But this is a very new thing in my life. I think it's been less than a month.
I understand the way you're using it, which totally makes sense to me. The way I'm seeing people use it, which has floored me, is they're using it as a 24/7 psychologist.
And that's insane.
Is it though?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe it's genius.
It probably is genius.
So the first time I started witnessing this is I was with somebody who was taking pictures of tarot cards and they were doing tarot card analysis with ChatGPT, which was actually super fascinating.
Okay.
So if you're interested in tarot, you can flip these cards and then suddenly you take a picture of it and ChatGPT will give you this astrological reading. Then it started breaching into this thing called human design. Have you seen this thing called human design? Well, you need to go to ChatGPT and say, what's my human design? And then you put in a bunch of details on your birth information and it gives you this, astrological summary of your life. So they're using it for horoscopes, basically, different types of horoscopes or different types of reflections on decision making, right? So you have a decision, you're nervous about the decision, you decide to turn to some spiritual, celestial unknown. You're using ChatGPT for that instance, which is funny because you would think, what would an AI engine have to do with tarot cards? So that was the first wave I saw. The second wave I saw is basically people using it to run through communications, decision making in emotional relationships. So-and-so said this to me, how should I respond? And I even had one where I was really frustrated with the communication I was having with somebody. And I wrote this response and I was with my son, who's 16. And I was like, hey, does this read right? He's like, you're terrible. You have no emotional insight into this person. And he takes my communication and he pastes it in the ChatGPT and he puts in some prompt about making me sound more empathetic or compassionate to the business person I was talking with. And then suddenly there's this completely different response comes out and he's like, use this response.
Yeah.
The two surprising factors for me, one is when people have anxiety over something and they previously were turned to horoscopes or psychics or whatever, they're using ChatGPT for that. The second is when people are having conflict in relationship, they're now talking to ChatGPT more like a psychologist. And the third is when they're communicating with humans, they're now using ChatGPT to basically filter or format or structure the conversations with humans to make them more receptive by the, receiving party. All three of those things really surprised me.
Yeah.
Or you're not doing this yet, though.
I'm not doing it in any of the ways that you just described.
Right.
But I am using it. So here's a great example. My birthday is coming up. I am going to throw a murder mystery party. In order to do that, though, I actually need solid RSVPs.
Okay.
What if the person who is supposed to be the detective doesn't actually show up?
Sure.
And so I asked ChatGPT yesterday to give me 3 variations of a pre-invitation.
Okay.
Like, I need this invitation. This is the info. Here is the link to the murder mystery party I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Give me something funny.
Yeah.
That said, I basically use it in that kind of way. I've never done it in like in a relationship aspect.
Right.
But I will always ask it to give me at least 3 versions.
Sure.
Of whatever it is, because then I take those versions and I synthesize.
Sure. I understand that you're using it for work, for work output, which totally makes sense. And it's a great use for that. It's designed for that, right?
And just coming up with basically a structure.
Yeah. Creative content, text structure, content, totally makes sense. What I keep coming back to that surprises me is that people are using it for the most human of things. They're using it to interpret emotion.
Have you used it in that way?
I mean, what I've done before is, like, at one point I uploaded my journal into ChatGPT and would ask it about questions about myself, which I thought was super fascinating. It's funny because I was talking to a therapist and I was thinking to myself, I would just give this person ChatGPT's summary of my journal and they can just like be up to speed on like how I'm feeling about stuff.
That's actually genius.
Yeah, which they weren't interested in, which I thought was like a complete miss on the therapist. I think these very human things that people are using ChatGPT for are what's surprising. And there's a study that came out that was talking about how if ChatGPT created like an epic work of art, and you saw this epic work of art and you thought it was from a human, you'd be really receptive to it. But the moment you thought it was the ChatGPT, you wouldn't be receptive to it. Like you weren't excited about it. And so I'm finding that we as humans are skeptical when there's like emotional output or human output coming from a computer. But when you receive it and you don't know it's human output, you might feel great about it. If I send you this emotional letter that I write for you for your birthday, you think it's written for me, you're going to have a bunch of value from it. The moment I tell you, well, this was ChatGPT's interpretation of my feelings for communicating to you on your birthday, you might actually really discount it and hate it.
Yeah.
Because it takes away something.
I guess. However, you still sent it.
True.
And you still had those thoughts. You wouldn't have sent it if you didn't mean it.
That's true. But it's kind of like, I hate Hallmark cards. Because I'm just like, if you're going to give me a card, you really can't take the time to write language inside this card. You're going to take someone else's wording. It's very similar to that, right?
Yeah.
What's funny is in my example where my son helped me reformat a communication for a business partner, it actually went really, really well. The fact that I didn't send what I wrote ended up being a really good thing. And the fact that I sent what ChatGPT wrote ended up being a way better thing. And suddenly the conflict was resolved and it was a really good outcome.
Yeah.
So then suddenly it's like, wait, is ChatGPT a filter then for human communication where it can clean up our communication with each other? Because if I'm in a bad mood or I'm not feeling emotional connected or I'm not reading into the subtext of conversation and ChatGPT does take that into account and perfects the reply communication, maybe that's a good thing.
I think it is.
Could be. Could resolve conflict. I mean, super interesting.
And going back to what you said like 5 minutes ago, it also can help alleviate anxiety.
Yeah. Well, the anxiety thing's interesting too, because if you're up in the middle of the night and you're pondering some decision and you have no one to talk to and you can't call your therapist, ChatGPT is there for you. And what you find is if you create this instance and over time you're constantly talking to ChatGPT about these emotional things in your life or these decisions you're making, it suddenly has a really interesting knowledge base on you. And it might end up being, in certain ways better than the therapist. And it's consistently available, but it also could be a crutch because it means that you'll get to a point where maybe you don't want to make any decisions without consulting ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You don't want to send any communications without running it through that filter. It's fun every once in a while to talk to a psychic and hear something cool or talk to your therapist and obviously get some feedback in some structured sense or anybody that's going to reflect your life back to you. That's super interesting. But to do it for every moment of the day, it's like, if you had a therapist with you 24/7 and everything you were saying or talking or deciding you're running through a therapist, that'd be very difficult for you to operate. But that's in certain way the way people are using ChatGPT.
I have a friend that does tarot readings and he did a mini one for me one time. It was actually really interesting. I'd never done one before. If he had used ChatGPT to interpret or analyze the results, I think I would have thought it was a load of bullshit.
Sure. I mean, most people probably think terror is a load of bullshit regardless.
But even more so.
For sure.
I find it really interesting that people use it for like astrology or for that just kind of area.
Right.
because that's very much a human interpretation.
That's the promise, right? The promise is the individual you're sitting with that evidently has some connectivity to the spiritual is going to feel something from you and sense something from you that's going to reflect back and however they're going to communicate with you. The concept of using a computer to do that
doesn't make any sense. It's actually incredibly irrational.
The deep irony, right? Unless you're like, no, my hand's being guided. So when I flip these cards, there's this like, whatever, it's same thing too. Like the other day I was with a group of people. We went to the Magic Castle in LA and we saw some magician perform and they had this incredible trip that involved this like voicemail message that was set up and suddenly he called his phone. It's like the only way that I could explain it was that he probably used AI. He probably used ChatGPT to basically complete this trick. So suddenly, was it really magic or was it AI?
Yeah.
It's funny to me that this engine is finding its way into these very human components of our daily lives.
So yesterday when I was asking it questions via the actual conversation part of it, I have this female British voice.
Okay.
And she literally said,
Oh, really?
I was with one of my girlfriends and I was like, Juliet, did you catch that? And she was like, yeah.
How funny.
Certainly, yes.
Yeah, so there's more human elements getting put into the system. Yeah, it's fascinating. The second piece that I want to talk about is this job world. So I don't know where everyone else is right now, but I see an increasingly number of college-educated people coming to me that don't know really where to go in their careers, and they're not finding job opportunities. And it's really, really odd. And I'm kind of believing that we're about to see this kind of stratification of the job market. Like either your creative leadership skill set and you're going to build your own thing and you're going to kind of be on the management side of the world, or you're a super talented individual contributor with a very specialty skill set. But we used to employ a lot of people in the middle there. And I worry those middle jobs are about to be disappeared. Whether you think that's customer service, whether it's Waymo self-driving cars and we're getting rid of the drivers, whether it's communications, whether it's project management. I mean, all the tools that we're seeing come out every day now with AI that's making our jobs easier and faster to do and cheaper in many ways are replacing humans. And so I wonder whether or not we're stepping into a world where not only like large components of the job market are about to go completely into AI, but also incoming people that are looking to enter the job market really won't have a place to go unless they're on this like leadership track or they're on the specialty track. But if they were kind of in the middle, I think they might find themselves in a hard place.
Yeah. I was talking to this group of girls who are currently freshmen at Stanford.
Okay.
Like a week ago.
Yeah. And
they were slightly stressed because the way the class credits are set up, near impossible to double major apparently.
Okay.
And it's, to get a minor, it's still like you have to really finagle your schedule.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were like, I really think I should minor in computer science.
Okay.
Not because I'm passionate about computer science,
right,
but simply because of what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder that too. It's like, and it's not going to be coding, right? It's like how to utilize technology to change roles, responsibilities, jobs, and processes within work, which makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
Because it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah, I looked at them and I was like, if I was currently in college, I probably would do the same thing.
I think you would need to. I mean, it's one thing if you're going to become an architect or a lawyer, although I think the law will be substantially disrupted with AI. Doctor, physician, of course, specialty psychologist, I understand. PhD grade specialty sciences, 100% love it, super important, right? But I think a lot of the stuff in the middle where it's like you typically graduated and you got an account management job at Google, I wonder if those jobs are going to be few and far between. And I worry that there's just going to be a lot of unemployment. And I think it might be on two sides. I think it might be, the Waymo self-driving cars taking out Uber drivers or AI-based customer support agents taking out human callers, or college graduates that can't find a foothold into large corporations because that mid-level job tier is just not there anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's about to have a major impact on us.
And it's going to be interesting to see how the two mesh in a work together sort of way.
Yeah.
Like how some industries or some facets of industries, instead of saying, oh no, like, let's not adopt this because it will lead to layoffs.
Yeah.
But instead say, oh yes, let's use like whatever the AI is.
Yeah.
Let's use all of these things to our advantage.
Yeah.
And make it a work together kind of thing.
Yeah. I also think it's also a major increase in productivity. So we're finding that everything we're building is like twice as fast, half as cost.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the tools that we're integrating in kind of our daily lives, just around processes, communication, proposals, finance, structures, contracts.
If I use it for something that's like structural, it just helps me actually see whatever the thing is. So for example, if I'm going to write a podcast episode, maybe I'll be like, hey, I want to talk about this. Write something out for me.
Sure.
And will I like all of it? Absolutely not. But will it help give me some roadmap of where to go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that because it streamlined something that otherwise I would have thought about for a very long time.
Yeah. No, I had somebody that had an unstructured piece of paper with a whole bunch of notes on it around a business concept. And they took a picture of it, uploaded an AI and said, write a plan. Mm-hmm. And it actually came out with a really, really good structure and outline for that. So you're right. It can take kind of unorganized thoughts and ideas and can basically put it into structure, which is super nice.
Yeah. Okay. College. Is it worth it?
I think it's definitely worth it if you're going into a specialist career that requires degrees or registration. Finance makes a lot of sense, like law, psychology, doctors. I mean, all this stuff I totally get. Anything in medical, of course. Yes. But I think if you're going to go into the general business workforce, I would argue that, splitting your time in college while you actually get a job and learn what it is to work in the type of company that you're interested in, whether it's big or small, is probably more useful than the college degree. That's not to say you shouldn't get a college degree. I'm just saying that like right now, my son homeschools and he's also working at a startup, right? And I would argue he's getting, if not more from the startup experience than he probably is from the homeschool classes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's going to choose to go to college, which I think is super exciting for him. But the reality is like, I'm more excited about him working at the startup and learning the kind of skills that's going to help him build a business or become a good contributing member to a founding team at a business. So I think getting practical on the ground experience is more important often than the college degree, but they both can go hand in hand, right? You don't have to give up one for the other.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I have seen him literally flourish since deciding to do homeschool.
Yeah. But the other side is I think if people think they're going to graduate from college with just a somewhat generic business degree and suddenly get picking up in a job, that may not happen. It's almost like if you think when you're in high school, and we went through this with our kids and they're thinking about going to college, it's this whole thing about the storyline. Like, what's the narrative and what are you a specialist at? And one person told me like, well, these colleges want to believe that you're going to be a huge future donor. So they want specialists. Even in high school, they want to believe that you have a focal specialist, so you're going to be best in the world at this. So you're going to be a huge donor to the university, which I totally get, right? Well, now when you're in college, and you're thinking about exiting college to go to a job, I think you also need to be thinking about being a specialist. So you don't want to graduate and be like, I have a general business degree. I've had no experience, working beyond a sandwich shop and a barista. Then you're just like another one of the massive people that basically have a generalized business degree and you don't stand out. I think if you're in college and you're thinking about what's coming after college and you think you want to work in this type of business or start this kind of company, the best thing you do in college is also become a specialist, the same way that you created that narrative in high school to get into college. So that when you leave college, you stand out among that crowd and you actually can kind of pinpoint where you want to be working.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think you just end up adrift.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your thoughts on graduate school or master's or business school, any of the above?
I think, again, like if you're in a specialist career, it totally makes sense. I think there's a lot of families that are wealthy and their kids do this to kind of punt, like trying to decide what they want to do in their career. So it's like, oh, well, I'll go to school for another 2 or 4 years. I can take out some loans. Maybe my parents will pay, whatever. I won't have to worry about finance and supporting myself. So I think it just depends on the reason, right?
Okay. So now amongst all of like your CEOs or the CEOs you work with or just leaders, that kind of thing, how many have college degrees and how many also have master's
degrees? I think most of our kind of founding creative CEOs, some of them have college degrees and a bunch of them don't.
So would you say more don't?
I don't know. I'd have to pull the numbers, but I can tell you 2 of our top portfolio companies over the last 12 years did not have college degrees. They dropped out of college.
That's amazing.
Again, they're outliers, right? They're the CEOs, they're the founders of the company. They have a vision. I formally work with outliers, right? That's kind of my role, right? With that said, often their chief operating officer or the number 2 in the company or the partner with that creative founding CEO, that person typically has a really, really strong college degree. I've seen things where it's like this one person that dropped out of college paired with this person that graduated from MIT, and they become a really intense, awesome combination because operations, finance, structure sits with your MIT grad, creative vision, thought leadership sits with your college dropout, but that pair ends up being super passionate and powerful, right? So it's not saying that all the CEOs do or don't have college degrees, but I'd often say that within the partnership level of like the 2 core founders of a business, there's one role that typically would really gravitate towards a college degree, and there's one role that typically may or may not gravitate towards a college degree, and that's totally okay. And then when you think about the second and third layer, in many cases they do have college degrees, some of them may not. But even right now, like one of our early CEOs today is probably 24, didn't graduate from college, started a business at 18, probably ran through 3 or 4 businesses before they even came to us, had an immense amount of interesting work experience that made me just completely love this person. And they became a specialist in their sector. And I think they're going to be very successful at the business they're building. And none of the things they did from the age of 18 to 20, whatever, they would have been taught in college. It was like all too cutting edge, all too new, all too very specific skill set that at the end of the day, like I don't think college would have necessarily helped them. But with that person, the one thing I want to do is pair them with that MIT grad, with that really strong Stanford grad, with a strong university graduate that basically will do finance and ops and straighten and structure the business for them. So I think that pairing is a good pairing.
That's really interesting. Amongst other VCs that you come across, work with, run into, that kind of thing, do you think they probably share that mindset? I
think so, but I think ventures dealing with these very specific outlying individuals and personalities that are like, it's not a normal thing. If you and I said, how many EVPs, SVPs over at Google, Amazon had college degrees, my guess is the answer is probably most.
Yeah.
Right. So for most people, it's the right choice. But I think in a world of AI disrupting jobs, and if that middle layer of jobs, as I'm kind of stating, I think is going to shrink, I would argue that we need specialists more than we need generalists. And you can become a specialist in college with a college degree. Absolutely. I absolutely love that. But I would argue you might be very mistaken if you think you graduate with a generalist college degree without college level work experience and just jump in the job market and hope that there's something there to catch you. I think that might be a tough place to be.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think it's interesting too, because this 24-year-old, let's say he's just, this MIT level genius. Obviously he didn't go to college, but, he could change any business that he becomes a part of. He would probably absolutely never get hired at Amazon because they probably run their applications like through AI.
Probably.
So it's kind of interesting too to think about how AI could stifle the job market, not by taking away jobs, but by maybe that person who was going to fully just help change a company will never actually get hired because AI will be the one that is filtering out their application.
Yeah, you're totally right. In human-based hiring, the human hiring manager has some level of prejudice, right? They're like, I do want college grads. I don't. I like this university. They have a perspective, right? And that goes into even skin color and gender and all the other impacts, right? So now you have AI that's been trained on all this data that was probably originally created with prejudice, right? And then if you said, yeah, job applications are going to filter through an AI hiring agent, which you're right, that will probably happen. The question is, does the AI have a broader set of knowledge that removes the prejudice, or does the AI look at historical knowledge and it utilizes the prejudice? And it's a really interesting question.
Or like maybe the person has a resume that is just full of the most random things.
Right.
But maybe those random things all somehow would fit together for whatever the job is.
Yeah.
But they're too random for AI to discern.
Maybe. But if they're too random for AI to discern, they're probably also too random for a human to discern.
Probably.
So you'd hope the AI will do better. But I think that was the overall risk, right? Is AI was trained on flawed human data because humans are flawed. And so the question will be, how will AI approach that in the job market? And I think you're totally right, because why wouldn't AI become a hiring filter for hundreds of resumes flowing into business? I have companies now that when they post a job opportunity, they're getting 1,000 applications and they're taking the application link down after a day because they have too much to go through. To your point, AI is a great tool for that, but it also shows to me that I feel like we're at a point right now where there's a lot of people looking for jobs, which I don't think has really bubbled up as much in the news. So I'm really curious to see where that sits.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
All right. So you wanted to talk about getting what you want.
Yes. I wanted to talk about asking for what you want.
Okay.
In a business sense or in a professional sense, where instead of just saying, okay, yes, almost like the power of like negotiating and being confident.
Okay.
Do you respect somebody you work with more if they don't always just say, okay, yes? Like if somebody says, hold on, I don't know about that certain thing. What if we did it this way? Or like if someone pushes back.
I get on a call with somebody and we have to beat around the bush for like 45 minutes. And the last 15 minutes, they're like, so this is what I really need from you. Is that kind of what you're thinking about?
Essentially, yeah.
There's a few examples that definitely come to mind. I definitely respect people that respect time, right? And so if somebody's reaching out to me and they have a very specific ask, I'm looking for a job with this company. I'm looking for an introduction to this person. I'm looking for introductions to these types of people. It's definitely easier for me if we can just get on a call and they can tell me what they need and I can tell them whether or not I can help them with that need. And in most cases, I'm definitely willing to help because I like to be helpful to people. What I don't like is if somebody burns 45 minutes of my time only to basically to try to get to a comfort level of making that ask. Because then I'm like, wait, you could have done this within the first 15 minutes and I could have actually spent the next half an hour doing what you need me to do versus we have to spend 45 minutes for you to actually come forth with what you're really looking for. Right? I like when people are definitely upfront and forthright with what they need.
Yeah.
And if I can help them, that's great. And typically I like to be honest too of like, look, I don't have that ability. So like there was somebody yesterday that was asking for some introductions to some investors in a business category I have no familiarity with. So I'm like, look, I'm super happy to help, but I don't know these people and I don't think my people are going to respond well to this. So it's better for me to say, I can't help you, but I appreciate you asking. And I'm glad that we didn't have to waste a bunch of time on it. And I don't want to tell you I'm going to do something that I'm not going to do. Right. So I think being forthright with what you need and asking for it in a nice, respectful way is a good thing to do for sure.
Well, and you also probably respect those people more.
Yeah, because they know what they want. In another conversation, I found that like women and men definitely approach this differently.
Oh, okay.
Right. I definitely have female CEOs who would kind of respond saying things like, I can't be that forthright because as a woman, if I'm forthright that way with a man on what I need, they're often not receptive to that conversation, right? They expect me to kind of beat around the bush and like have a longer conversation and warm up to it and then kind of gently ask. Whereas like, I think it's much more acceptable for a guy to be like, this is what I want. Do you have the ability to provide this to me? Can we work this way? Is there, something to be done or not? And so I wonder whether there's a gender stereotype that's holding women back on asking for what they want.
That's really interesting. Amongst the people that you work with, can you see that difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think often society is telling women to be thankful for what you have and for guys to be aggressive with what you want. And so, I have a really good friend who's a super powerful woman in business and she feels guilty for her financial desires. She'll tell it to you, but then she's like, I feel bad saying this. It makes me sound so shallow. And I'm like, if you were a guy, your desire to be financially successful would make you more investable. But she feels like as a woman, having that desire makes her less interesting to guys or makes her into a worse woman. And she has self-judgment against it. And it's not just because of her. I mean, I'm sure she's probably felt judgment against it in society. So I don't think it's just her own anxiety that's bringing it up. I think she's probably absolutely felt that. But she feels guilty asking for what she wants. And like I said, I think it's because women are taught to be thankful for what they get.
Yeah.
Versus men are being taught to like, go get what you want.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That's actually something that I have been consciously working on for a while because I say thank you way too much.
Oh yeah. Or sorry.
Sorry.
I mean, you may not,
sorry. I'm pretty good at it now. That was like last year's
resolution is get rid of sorry.
Last year's resolution was don't say sorry unless you actually need to. But saying thank you. I will always say thank you for the coffee, but I don't need to say it 5 times.
Sure. Yeah.
And I am a huge offender of that.
Okay. How you were raised, maybe?
For sure. Oh, 100% is how I was raised. Looking at it from the outside might make me look less confident in a weird way. Like, why is this person just saying sorry or saying thank you so much? Like, I've said
like you don't
once.
Deserve it. Like, well, oh, you must not deserve this.
Yeah.
Because you're so thankful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say it once. You don't need to say it 5 times.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, I think there's definitely a gender split here. I think it definitely favors men, like most things in society do with gender splits. It definitely, I think, is hard for female CEOs to express their ambitions and financial desires clearly, or their intentions, their needs. I think they're taught not to do that. I think they have to unlearn that. It's funny because we also have a few female CEOs that are also gay, and I think that they actually have a more direct approach on what they want to do than my female CEOs that are not gay. I mean, it's just very small sample sets, but I've definitely noticed a difference.
Yeah.
My female gay CEOs will be very direct on what they want, and they typically get it, and they're not apologetic for going after what they want. But I definitely have other female CEOs that are like, nervous to, be forthright with it. I think it's a bad societal for women, which is sad.
Yeah.
And to your broad point, it's like, like in a world where you don't want to be transactional, we don't want to be narcissists on just like only asking for what we want. But, at the end of the day, we also don't want to burn time. Exactly. So, if you're building something incredible or you're trying to develop something, you should be specific with what you want.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be selfish.
No.
Because you could be like, hey, Arianna, can you like help me do this?
Yeah.
And then I would say yes, if I can.
Yeah.
But then I would also do the same. It's a tit for tat kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's true in romantic relationships too.
It is.
Like I have a few friends going through transformations in their kind of marital relationships. And one theme that I've heard now from multiple of them is that they're sitting down with their partner and they're saying, hey, let's both express what we want and expect from each other in our relationship. Like, what do we really want? And many of these are people that have been married for like a long time and they're kind of renewing that marriage. And they're kind of having this discussion point of like, what do you expect and want in a relationship? What do I expect and want in a relationship? Let's be forthright with what we want. Whereas maybe when they met younger, they'd never had that dialogue, right? So it's kind of the same thing. In a certain sense, even from a board perspective, if I'm on a board with a CEO, it's not a bad idea for me to have a one-on-one conversation, be like, look, this is what I expect from you as a CEO and from me as a board member. And let's have a dialogue of what you expect from me as a board member so I can better support you in your role so we understand our mutual expectations with each other, right? And we really don't do that, right? Because we end up in these relationships. It could be with a co-founder of a business. It could be with a romantic partner. It could be with a board investor relationship with a CEO. But we don't often sit down and define what we want out of our friendships, relationships, work relationships, right? Until maybe there's a conflict. And often when there's a conflict, it's too late anyway. So I think the concept of saying, this is what I want here and what do you want here? And let's make sure we understand each other's mutual expectations. It's a good practice.
Yeah. I did couples therapy in 2 relationships ago.
Okay.
And it was amazing. It was amazing because the therapist didn't even have to speak. It just created an environment where you were able to get everything out. And thankfully, in my particular case, not in a yelling sort of way. Like it wasn't like, go yourself.
Sure.
But it was amazing because it did do exactly what you just said. It created this open dialogue that, I mean, the relationship was doomed. Let's be honest here.
Okay.
But it created an open dialogue that significantly helped the relationship until, it just fizzled out. But from a verbal communication standpoint, even when we were breaking up, that therapy helped even then.
That's great. It opened up a dialogue.
And it's helped me since.
Yeah.
And it's made communication just this non-negotiable pillar for me.
Yeah.
So I also think it's interesting because when I was crowdsourcing for this episode, and I was talking to I don't even know who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody about this idea of asking what you want, both maybe in relationships, but also really in business. And this led to the concept of the 5 love languages.
Okay.
So taking those, but then translating them or paralleling them to business relationships. And I thought this was really interesting because I had never thought about it that way, as you kind of said it. So if someone's love language is acts of service, how does that translate into their professional life? Yeah.
In a romantic relationship, or even with my kids, I know my kids' love languages and I see it when I hit upon their love language. I can feel the receptiveness to it. I can feel the warmth, right? And I'm like, okay. What's funny is because in my initial reaction is, well, in a business relationship, it's almost forced, you don't have a choice kind of. It's I'm an investor, you're whatever, we work together, you're my partner. So it's almost well, why would I need to worry about this, right? Well, the answer is well, because you'll have a better relationship if you do, right? I think in many cases, the traditional view on business is why does that matter? Because we're in this transactional relationship together in business. And so we don't need to worry about this. But to your point, if I thought through the conflict I've had or areas where I have weak relationships with people that I work with, if I did know their love language, and I did, take the effort to meet them on that level, we would definitely have a better business relationship. And I've literally never thought about that.
Yeah. And it would be less transactional.
Yes.
And there would be more trust. There would be more respect.
Be more meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a bad idea.
That, and then I think it also would then foster great ideas.
It would. And just better collaboration and communication and trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. You're not wrong because business relationships are naturally transactional. You're paying someone to do a job, right? And there's a boss and there's an employee and there's this very specific dynamic and the roles are basically stated financially, right? It's these are the financial roles. You do what I say. You get paid this amount of money. This is the transaction. But great relationships in business go obviously way beyond that, right? And they have a true trust. And part of that trust is probably developing through understanding how that person receives love. Yeah. I mean, honestly, very rarely discussed.
So when I was just thinking about the concept, I asked ChatGPT and I was like, what are some, is this a thing?
Yeah. What did it say?
And so it said, yes, it can like love languages can transfer over to business professional sense. It was like, for example, acts of service.
Sure.
Acts of service, translate it now to a business relationship.
Yes.
Could literally be like, you have all of this work. I've like finished mine. I can help. Or
sure.
Do you need help with this concept? Or just being available.
Sure. Or just showing up in some meaningful way. Agreed.
Yeah. There was another one that translated over more to like brainstorming and being creative. So I then, though, the kicker is that I said, okay, give me examples of entrepreneurs and their possible love languages. And the one that really stuck out to me is they gave me Oprah as an example and how her love language is, words of affirmation. That's one of them. So probably like more like words of affirmation based, that area, because she, in her business, and I've never worked for Oprah, but let's assume that it's also great to do that. She fosters this community that is very positive.
Sure.
And very empowering.
Yeah.
And so it takes this love language of words of affirmation, translates it to being one of the most successful voices of this generation century.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've been in executive situations where we do these compatibility matrices where we have some psychologists come in and they do a bunch of tests and then it shows people all these different kind of roles, but I've never heard them talk to me about people's love languages. They've always been like, this person's like this and they're going to work together and they're not going to work well together and you have to give this person, but not way of connecting, right? And so, I like the idea of a deeper connection with your business people.
So quality time is also a love language.
Yes.
They gave me Elon Musk for that one.
Okay. Really?
He's like a very big proponent of in person, isn't he?
I don't know.
I feel like he is.
Well, I think he is I don't know if that's in person with him or whether it's just come into the office and make sure you're working, but sure.
Yeah, but like maybe his love language is quality time and it doesn't matter if he's there or not, but it translates to his business structures.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
I mean, can you, without somebody going through a very detailed, questionnaire, can you find out someone's love language by putting in third-party known data? Like I haven't even looked at my love language forever, so this is a new. That's
a really good question.
I don't know if you can. It'd be interesting.
It would be really interesting.
But going back to it, it's kind of what I was saying about like expectations of relationships, like having a dialogue with your business partner or your romantic partner, what you expect within the relationship, very similar to understanding how you can please that person in the relationship through whatever their love language is.
Yeah.
Deeper
and how
connection.
they work together.
Yeah. Super interesting.
Yeah. Food for thought.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.